So I haven't been doing much in the last few days. I've been a bit busy with some things, but also I've been a little bit overwhelmed with the sort of absolute, the theatrics that have been going on with the U.S. election. It's sort of revving up to this fever pitch of idiocy and propaganda. And I don't know about you, but I find it kind of turns my stomach, because it's sort of, have you always seen that movie Planes, Trains and Automobiles, where John Candy is sitting in the driver's seat and he dropped a cigarette and the car was on fire, and Steve Martin is sitting beside him, and he looks over and he has this sort of hallucination for a moment that John Candy's got devil's horns and he's laughing maniacally and there's flames all around him, and it's like, he's sitting in this car with a sort of a maniac, because everything's on, basically they're traveling down the road and the car's on fire. It's kind of quite funny, but in some ways, when I think about what's going on with this election, and you've probably seen the recent thing with Nancy Pelosi saying, "We feed them." I'll show you this little clip. It's kind of disgusting. It's a couple of minutes long, and it makes Wolf Blitzer, who is, part of the CNN, the Clinton News Network, who props up anything that's put in front of him, props up the U.S. national security state and the oligarchs, whatever they want, he's propping them up. And he does the bidding, and, it's all this Trump derangement syndrome and all of that. He actually was pushing against Nancy Pelosi, saying, we feed, there are people that are out in the streets and they're desperate for food, they have no money, and things are desperate. Wolf Blitzer is actually looking like a progressive. This is how far gone it is.
As you know, there are Americans who are being evicted from their homes. They can't pay the rent. Many Americans are waiting in food lines for the first time in their lives. Can you look them in the eye, Madam Speaker, and explain why you don't want to accept the president's latest stimulus offer?
Well, because, thank you very much, Wolf, and I hope you'll ask the same question of the Republicans about why they don't really want to meet the needs of the American people. But let me say to those people, because all of my colleagues, we represent these people. I have for over 30 years represented my constituents. I know what their needs are. I listen to them, and their needs are not addressed in the president's proposal. So when you say to me, why don't you accept theirs? Why don't they accept ours?
Right now, and even members of
I understand
your own,
that,
but even members of your own caucus. Even members of your own caucus, Madam Speaker, want to accept this deal. $1.8 trillion. Congressman Ro Khanna, for example. But let me just quote Ro Khanna, a man you know well. I assume you admire him. He's a Democrat. And he just said this. He said, people in need can't wait until February. $1.8 trillion is significant and more than twice the Obama stimulus. Make a deal. Put the ball in McConnell court. So what do you say to Ro Khanna?
What I say to you is, I don't know why you're always an apologist, and many of your colleagues apologists for the Republican position
out there, but there are millions of Americans who have lost their jobs. They can't pay the rent. Their kids need the food.
That's right, and that's what we're trying to get done.
$1.8 trillion, and the president just tweeted, stimulus, go big or go home. He wants even more right now, so why not work out a deal with him, and don't let the perfect, as they say here in Washington, be the enemy of the good.
Of how
that's precisely why, Madam Speaker,
they're concerned.
That's why it's so important right now. Yesterday I spoke to Andrew Yang, who says the same thing. It's not everything you want, but there's a lot there.
Honest to God, you really, I can't get over it, because Andrew Yang, he's lovely. Ro Khanna, he's lovely. They are not negotiating this situation. They have no idea of the particulars. They have no idea of what the language is here. I didn't come over here to have, so you're the apologist for the Obama, excuse me, God forbid.
Madam Speaker, I'm not an apologist. I'm asking you serious questions, because so many people are in desperate need right now. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
When was the last time?
Let me respond to you.
Let me ask you, when was the last time, Madam Speaker, when was the last time you spoke with the president about this?
I don't speak to the president. Speak with his representative.
Why not call him and say, Mr. President, let's work out a deal. It's not going to be everything you want, not going to be everything I want, but there are so many Americans right now who are in desperate need. Let's make a deal.
What makes me amused, if it weren't so sad, is how you all think that you know more about the suffering of the American people than those of us who are elected by them to represent them at that table.
Fellow Democrats in the House, they want a deal right now.
No, that isn't.
The problem solvers, they all want a deal right now.
Yeah.
And here's what they're complaining about, because you wrote a letter to House Democrats and you said this. Let me read a line from the letter you wrote. The president only wants his name on a check to go out before Election Day and for the market to go up. Is that what this is all about? Not allow the president to take credit if there's a deal that will help millions of Americans? I have only the greatest respect for you.
$1.6 trillion.
$1.8 trillion. $1.8 trillion is a lot of money. The American people need that money ASAP because they're suffering right now. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying...
And you don't care how it's spent.
I care, of course, how it's spent. But what I don't understand is why not talk to the president personally, call him up and say, Mr. President, let's get a deal tomorrow.
Look, Mr. Mnuchin, I think he has integrity representing his position. May I finish, please? But he has integrity representing his position, but his position has no integrity. They do not share our values. Have a little respect for the fact that we know something about these subjects. And there's a big difference between Democrats and Republicans in whether they want to give a big tax cut to the wealthiest people in the country in their bill.
Madam Speaker, yes. I certainly respect you, but I also respect Ro Khanna. I respect Andrew Yang. I respect members of the Democrats who are members of the problem solvers. They want a deal because so many people right now
well,
are suffering.
Well, the problem solvers, by the way, don't have any earned income tax credit or child tax credit in their proposal either. But let's not go into that.
Yeah,
you evidently do not respect the chairman of the committees who wrote these bills.
I respect
and
all of you.
And I wish you would respect the knowledge that goes into getting meeting the needs of the American people. But again, you've been on a jag defending the administration all this time with no knowledge of the difference between our two bills. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that to you in person.
All right, Madam Speaker, these are incredibly difficult times right now, and we'll leave it on that note. Thank you so much for joining us.
We'll leave it on the vote that you are not right on this, Wolf, and I hate to say that to you. But I feel confident about it, and I feel confident about my colleagues, and I feel confidence in my chairs.
And it's not about me. It's about millions of Americans who can't put food on the table, who can't pay the rent,
and we represent them. And we represent them.
Getting
and
by
we represent
these
them.
long food
and
lines
we
that we're seeing.
Them.
I know
we
you
know
are.
Them.
I'm just saying.
We represent them, and we know them.
As we say,
we know them. We represent them.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, as they say.
It is nowhere near perfect.
Madam Speaker.
Always the case, but we're not even close to the good.
All right, let's see what happens, because every day is critically, critically important.
When you've got that kind of thing, when you've got people lining up in sort of cities like Los Angeles, and they're lining up in these food lines, waiting because they're hungry, that's a failed state at that point, really. And this is a country where there are a few people who have more wealth than most of the country. That in Los Angeles, I think, people are, instead of being outside these food banks at 5 a.m., they're now sleeping overnight to get in line for these food banks. I mean, this is insane. So I'll show you this little clip, and you can think about when she says we feed them. This sounds like some sort of feudal system, and she doesn't feed them. The Democratic Party, in fact, have a contempt for homeless people. They have contempt for poor people. They criminalize being poor. In California, and where Pelosi is, they criminalize being homeless. They put spikes under bridges and spikes on anything that they think homeless people can sit on or lay on. And apparently, it's absolutely spiraled. It was already bad before the COVID pandemic, and now it's absolutely outrageous. This is a failed state, and yet they keep putting out this narrative, this ridiculous narrative that they're the richest country in the world. Well, yes, there might be a whole bunch of billionaires there. They're doing very well, thanks very much. And the rest of them are out, there's people that are, 5 million people are on the verge of being long-term unemployed, which is a disaster. There are people on the verge of eviction. And I just read something just the other day. Yasha Levine put out this thing, I'm going to talk about it more, about the scam of the Nobel Prize for Economics. And really, what that was all about was normalizing neoliberalism so people would actually think that it's sort of a real, that it's a good thing, basically. But I'll talk about that another time. But I was watching something just today from Jason Unruh, who was talking about basically the title of his video. He's actually somebody who, I don't agree with everything Jason Unruh says. His site is called The Maoist Rebel. He does a lot of really good news reports. He puts it together really well. And he put out this video today. It was really more like just an audio saying it was titled "Help, I Don't Know What to Do," which was basically he was realizing that nothing's going to turn around this capitalist juggernaut. Basically, it's not a matter of even turning it around. Half of the Titanic is in the water, and it just keeps going. It's just going down slowly. That's where we're at. And he sees that. He says, look, I don't like to be a doomer, but, I think that it's sort of, we're basically heading for extinction because nothing's going to change. And he also talked about how this ridiculous thing about masks, how people are pushing against wearing a mask. I saw somebody the other day who's a leftist, he's a professor at a university, and he was talking about how he thinks he's got a petition out to stop people, because he thinks it's an awful thing that people are required to wear masks. I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing. If anybody wants things to turn around, this wearing a mask is actually, in a pandemic, this is not a new thing. They used to do this in the beginning of the last century when they had a pandemic. I think it was 1918. They used to wear masks then. This is not something new. And yes, governments can use anything they want to oppress people and put on more social control. But at the same time, wearing masks or maybe having lockdowns is actually going to decrease the number that is insane. In the United States, 212,000 people are dead now because of Donald Trump and his lack of action on this issue and his poo-pooing masks. And I see today, when he's doing this, he's doing one of his campaign rallies in Iowa. He has all the people behind him wearing masks because now it's convenient for him to put out the mask narrative because he's not doing well in the polls. He's like 10 points down from Biden. I don't trust polls. I don't know why, but I still think he's going to win anyway, but he may not. But he's down 10 points in the polls. And he's got people with Trump masks, MAGA masks on behind him. Everybody's wearing a mask. So the campaign probably insisted that all the people behind him wear masks. I bet the people in front of him weren't wearing masks. It's all optics for him. He doesn't care about the people that are not wearing masks. He doesn't care about his own family. He doesn't care that his own son got COVID. I'm sure there was probably a positive test before he got the one that they talk about being positive. They won't tell us when he last, well, as far as I know, they haven't been able to, the doctors and his staff won't say when he last had a negative test before he tested positive. So he's probably been passing it around to his family, not wearing masks. But whatever with Donald Trump. I mean, I'm so sick of hearing his name. I'm so sick of seeing him. I haven't been following him for the best part of the 4 years because I see a lot of this domestic electoral politics is just a waste of time really following it in any detail because both parties are just liars. They say whatever is convenient at the time. They put out their narratives and they're constantly making up stuff. But, and Nancy Pelosi, it's very clear she wasn't happy with what Wolf Blitzer said, but, it just shows the level of arrogance. And this is the woman who was standing in front of a $12,000 fridge with all her, sort of connoisseur ice creams in the fridge and talking to one of these late night talk show hosts and talking about, her ice cream in a pandemic when most people are on the verge of losing their job or lost their job or on the verge of eviction or can't afford to feed themselves, and there's long lines, food bank lines, all that kind of thing. They have nothing. These people don't fear anything anymore. They don't fear the public. They don't fear the guillotines and the pitchforks, and they need to fear that. I'm not talking about, I don't believe in violence as solving anything because you just end up with brutes once again in office, but I'm talking about they need to have a healthy fear of the public, and they don't. And that's why she stands in front of a $12,000 fridge talking about her connoisseur ice creams. They don't care. But I'm so sick of listening to Donald Trump and his lies, and Joe Biden is full of it too. It makes me sick. It's a sideshow, a carnival, and I don't know who they think they're fooling because the proof is in the pudding, and that pudding is rotten. There is nothing good about what's happening, and everybody knows, a lot of people know it now. And unfortunately, they have people in Trump's, it's starting to rain, I'm going to have to go shortly. When I was listening to Jason Unruh talk about all the different things and how he sort of almost feels like giving up, it's not surprising. There's widespread depression because of how this is all playing out. And he doesn't even live in the United States. I don't live in the United States, and it makes me, I feel like I feel like just shutting down because it's just awful to witness. And this is not isolated to the United States, this sort of where the oligarchs are doing whatever the hell they want. We've got the same thing in Australia where the people in power basically don't really care about the public. They look after corporations. We have more and more an inverted totalitarian state, just like, and the United States is definitely that, but we will eventually get there too in Australia. But it was very sad to listen to Jason Unruh, and I've been feeling like just sort of shutting down from what's going on in this electoral process because I can see it's going to get more and more bizarre, more and more disgusting and offensive, and I just can't bear to watch it. I can't bear to watch it, and also, if these are the kinds of people that are going to continue on running one of the most powerful countries in the world and pressuring others to follow their environmentally devastating footsteps, then things are very, very dire. And anybody who can't see that, if they don't recognize that, then they are not paying attention.